This conference will now be recorded.
All right, good morning, everybody. My name is Zafar Iqbal. I'll be taking the Unit 3, how to operate, how businesses operate, and this is Lesson 1 on L01, understanding the key features of a business environment. And I'm from UK Versity Online, based in Manchester. Okay, so I hope you're okay. Could you just introduce me yourself, please, just for the sake of a discussion, and who's attending the session?
Yeah, Jasmine. I'm Jasmine.
Okay, Jasmine, can you just tell me a little bit about yourself first, so that you know anything about the businesses, anything about the diploma in business, anything qualification that you have in the past, or um, related to this qualification?
I've done AAT.
And,
I mean, I do want to um open my own business. That
okay,
and
okay, good. So you've
give
done
it.
the AAT.
Yeah, I've done AAT.
You know anything about the business, how do businesses operate, or you've not studied this before?
I have because I sort of did at school with business studies, like business
Okay,
plans and everything. I have sort of had a look into it, but not in detail.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. So this unit is about how businesses operate. It's on ATHE level 3. And this is the first of the few lessons that we're going to talk about. And then you'll have an assignment to do. Then we'll go, after having done the LOs 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6, or whatever, how many are there. Then I'll go through the assignment brief and what you're expected to do. During the session, if you have any question, just stop me whenever you don't understand anything. Please, we'll try and clarify the matter, and then we move on forward. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
So the first learning outcome is to understand the key features of a business environment. Okay, what do you think the key features may be in a business environment? What do you think business is? Any idea what a business consists of, or how do they
Yes.
operate?
So, like, what your business does, first of all, like,
Do you know what a
who are
business
you?
is?
Yeah, so like, say like a taxi company, so it would be taxi operations. It would be some.
Mhm.
That's what that would be. But then you would need to aim it, like, what's your target group as well?
Right. Okay. Okay.
Um,
Businesses basically are there to make money, aren't they? They are there to provide goods and services to the general public, and with the view of
yeah.
making profit. I think this is what the businesses are. Okay, so we'll be looking at the overview of how businesses, what are businesses, how do they operate, what's the underlying factor, what kind of features, functions do they have, and the importance of business success to an economy. Okay. So first of all, looking at the business environment, okay, what do you think business environment is? Okay, business environment is where there are a lot of uh, businesses who operating inside and outside the business. The business environment consists of a general um, environment that contains businesses, and the environment is the internal environment and the external environment. So there are businesses, there is a component of internal and external businesses. The internal businesses consist of, for example, people working in the organization, and external factors are like customers, for example, government activities, economic problems. Okay. So we have businesses mainly affected, or the business is affected by the internal environment and external environment. This is what the environment is of a business. Okay. So when we look at the business as a whole, businesses are there to make profit and provide goods and services. They are affected by the internal and external factors, or internal and external environment. Internal environment is something to do with the internal running of the business, such as human resources, such as financial resources, such as um, internal policies, such as internal IT equipment and so on, and external factors such as the government, such as the economic activity outside, such as the customers, the government factors, and so on. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got internal and external factors affecting a business. So the business environment, it consists of the whole environment. There are two parts to the environment, which is the internal and the external. Internal consists of the people working in the organization. It's got some human resources, it's got some machines, it's got finances, it's got internal policies and procedures. And external environment, which consists of the business that has no control over with, so for example, other suppliers and government policies and the environment, the international environment. Okay, so that's what external environment is. Now, internal environment and external environment is quite important. Sometimes we have to look at the internal and the external environment in the sense of economics, which is called micro and macro environment of businesses. Okay, micro is a small part of the business environment, and the macro is the wider aspects of the environmental business. Okay, so looking at the micro environment, we are talking about the customers, we're talking about the competition, we're talking about the market, we're talking about the suppliers of inputs, we're talking about the public. Okay, and external factors, we said, the other factors that are outside the control of the organization, like economic environment, social and cultural environment, political and technology, demographic and natural environments. Okay. Right. We said, what are the business? Business is there to make a profit. It provide goods and services. There are different. There's no such specific definition of a business. I'll just take one. Can you see this screen? What is a business?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So our business is mainly, it says there are different definitions of business. Depends how you look at it. To me, for example, a business is there as a legal entity, as a legal body, which provides goods and services to customers with a view to make a profit. Because it's, however, profit is not always the motive, but it provides goods and services. Okay. So that can be one aspect of looking at a business. Another aspect of looking at the business is it includes all organizations, whether they are making any profit or whether they are not making profit, but they provide services and goods and services to the general public and so on. Okay. Goods, goods include something physical. Goods include something structured, something you can see, touch, and feel. For example, we talking about goods like a cup making a business making cups, business making computers, business producing fruit and vegetables. Okay, you can see, or businesses producing phones. These are called goods. And services are something like educational services, for example, medical services. You can't see them, but you can feel them. You can see the standard of the service. Okay, this is something that you receive when you need something. For example, if when you need education, you go to school, but you can't see the school providing this product. However, you can feel that there is some kind of a standard or yardstick. Okay, so this is a service is different to physical goods. Okay.
Yeah.
The businesses are there. Why are they there? They are there to meet the needs of the stakeholders. They are there to meet the needs of customers. They are there to produce goods and services. They buy raw materials. They produce goods. They produce them internally or externally, buy them and they sell them. They are many producers come from different sectors. Many producers come from primary sectors, secondary sectors, and tertiary sectors. So the primary sectors are, for example, agricultural businesses. So secondary sectors are like producing goods and services and selling them to the markets. And the tertiary sector is transportation and getting the goods to the final consumer. Okay, so these just like a primary school and secondary school and the higher school. So there are three types of sectors in businesses. This is a primary sector, there's a secondary sector, and there is a tertiary sector. Tertiary sector is to do with goods and services, or passing on the goods and services to the consumer. And secondary is producing those goods and services into finished product, and the primary sector is producing the goods and services from the raw materials. Okay, so your production line passes through these three sectors. Okay, so may I ask you, are you following me?
Yeah, I am.
Good. Okay, good. If you don't understand, if you don't follow, please just stop me and say, I don't understand tertiary sector, I don't understand secondary, or the primary. Then
Yeah.
I'll try and explain. Okay, so first of all, what you need to do is tell me what a stakeholder. I mean, for example, what is a stakeholder? You as a stakeholder, what do you mean by a stakeholder?
Is it
When you
like
talk about stakeholder,
similar to a shareholder?
similar to shareholder,
Like
might
someone
be.
who's got something in the business, like
Okay.
a share, like a stake, basically.
Yeah.
So
Not
a stake of
always somebody
something.
who's not always a shareholder. For example, if you're living next door to a school, for example,
Yeah.
but you're not you don't go to the school next door, but you live next door. Are you a stakeholder in that in the school?
No, but
Or
because
how are
you,
you stakeholder in that
yeah,
part of the school?
because you live there, so you've got,
Because you live there. Okay,
yeah,
so
yeah,
stakeholder is quite different to a shareholder. Stakeholder is a person or people who have an interest in a local business, on a local service, or who has an impact on the running of the local services. Not necessarily you are a shareholder. Okay, so
okay,
shareholder specifically is a person who has some kind of an interest
money,
in an organization and
yeah,
they receive dividend. But a stakeholder is a person who has an interest, just an interest in the running of the local business or a service. So if you are a stakeholder next door to your school, you are a stakeholder in the sense that you are affected by the school by noise, for example, noise of car parking, a lot
yeah,
of people coming into the area with a lot of cars and dropping children off and then taking, and you're affected all the time, aren't you?
yeah,
Then you can have a say to the school. We are facing these issues. Can you sort these out for us, please? Because then they have to sort these things out because you're a stakeholder.
yeah,
Similarly, a shareholder is a stakeholder also in a company because they can dictate the running of the organization. Okay,
yeah,
because they are shareholders. Okay,
yeah,
so the stakeholders, not necessarily the shareholder, but the shareholders are stakeholders. Okay,
okay.
right. So stakeholders, there are different stakeholders. So some examples of stakeholders. Can you think of uh, some stakeholders here? I think we
Um,
can. Can you see the screen there?
yeah, so
So if you're talking about stakeholders,
employees as well are
employees, or if
stakeholders.
you are, example, if you're working in an organization, you are a stakeholder in the running of the organization, as to saying how the company should be run, how should the employees benefit from the service of the organization, right? The suppliers are stakeholders in the sense that
Yeah,
they need money off the business, and if the business is not there, they can't have the business out, right? And
yeah.
the government, of course,
Customers
is a
as
stake.
well,
Yeah,
because
sorry,
customers,
customers are
yeah,
stakeholders definitely, and government is also a stakeholder in that particular business
yeah,
because they get revenue of the business in the form of tax, right?
yeah,
Local authority is a stakeholder in the running of the business because they also need some council taxes, and they need to provide you know other services to the business in the sense of advice, for example, uh, you know grants,
yeah,
for example, if they need any help. So these are all stakeholders. So there are stakeholders, and there are different types of stakeholders. Some of them internal stakeholders, and then some are external stakeholders, right? As the business
Yeah.
environment. So internal stakeholders, as you said, the people who are having an interest in the business, and like employees, like people working in the organization themselves, managers, shareholders.
External would be customers, right? Because they're not
External
in.
would be,
Yeah.
that's correct. External would be customers, the government, the local
Yeah.
council, the suppliers, the creditors, right?
Yeah.
And so on. Okay, so these are the
Okay.
stakeholders. Okay, can I move on?
Yep.
Yeah, the next thing we looked at in earlier session, we looked at the primary sector, secondary and tertiary sector. So
Yeah.
primarily, the primary sector is, you know, consists of the basic sector,
Like the
which is
raw
extractive
materials,
raw
basically.
materials, right?
Yeah.
So farmers produce goods. They are called the primary producers, or primary extractors, or the primary sector. They are working in the primary sector, okay,
Yeah.
like mining and fielding and agriculture, and they supply those crops and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
When they supply the goods to the secondary sector, which is the manufacturer, i.e., they send goods over for making, for example, if they are producing uh, wood, they will send the wood over to a manufacturing organization, and they can produce goods like tables or chairs or anything to do with that particular wood. They turn the
Yeah.
raw material into finished goods, and then when the finished goods are produced, the secondary sector has to turn them over to selling to the customers. So they hire the services of the transportation. Those is transportation, which is a service. It's known as the tertiary sector. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we move on from primary to secondary to tertiary sector, which is mainly tertiary sector provides the services in order to transport that goods into the
Yeah.
market. Okay, quickly. Okay, then we're looking at the other thing we need to look at, what kind of sectors. Apart from these, there are other two sectors we need to look at: the private sector, the type of businesses are private sectors, and the public sector. Okay, so do you know anything
Yeah.
about the public and private sector? Have you done anything
Yeah.
on it? Okay,
Because I
go on.
worked for accountants, so
Okay,
we done the sole traders, companies,
good.
limited company, um, and like
Okay,
the charities, like
yes,
companies trade. Yeah, so we done
excellent.
all of that.
Okay, nice one. So you're working in the private sector, right?
Yeah.
Like a sole trader. So this is a sole trader account, or sole proprietor, yeah,
Yeah.
accountant business structure. So in the sectors, in the private sector, this is owned by individuals, and this is owned by run by individuals. So we have a
Yeah.
type of businesses like sole trader, partnership companies, franchises, and cooperatives. In the public
Yeah.
sector, mainly provided by the government. They provide services. They provide other kind of services to the public. These are
Yeah.
mainly public sector organizations, okay, owned by the
Yeah.
government, run by the government, and controlled by the
Like
finance.
HMRC and
Yes,
stuff.
of course.
Yeah.
Okay, or HMRC,
Yeah.
or the police service, or the council.
Solicitors would be public, isn't it? Because it
No, solicitors
depends, would
are
it not?
no solicitors will come into the private sector here,
Private. Okay.
because they're owned, unless the Crown Prosecution Service, for example, that's a kind of a public sector.
With the police, if they work like with the
Yes,
police.
yes.
Yeah.
Police is a
Okay.
public organization. Okay,
Okay.
right. Next, moving on to the next slide. Can you see the slide? Ownership and business objectives.
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. So the main, as we said earlier on, the main onus of businesses is to make profit. Definitely, right? They
Yeah.
do provide service, but the main objective, the private sector organization, is to make a profit. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in business. Okay.
Yeah.
They finance. They have other objectives like surviving. They provide employment. They provide goods and services. That's other objectives. They have objectives like being bigger and being better and being convenient and more friendly and so on. Okay, so these are sub objectives, but the main objective is to provide a profit, and that's what they are there for. Okay, the next slide, excuse me, the next slide tells you the different types of businesses, their advantages, disadvantages, what the definition, and why are they there, and how many owners. For example, if you're talking about the sole trader, there's sole trader means there's one business, one man business. Example of a sole trader is as yourself, working in the accounting business, probably a sole trader. Yeah, and if they become so what's the advantage of that sole trader?
It's so well, you can put your own prices. Really, you can basically you're your own boss. That's the main.
Yeah, basically, of course, you're your own boss. You come as you go. You come as you open the businesses whenever you want, close it whenever you want, take a time off whenever you want. So you're really independent. You need to ask nobody about the running of the organization. You do what you please to do yourself.
Yeah,
Okay.
and you take the full profits basically. If you're the
and you take the full profit. Definitely, you take the full profit and keep it to yourself. Okay. If he takes on somebody else, then he becomes a partner.
a partnership.
So minimum of partnership is 2, and if he becomes, there are different advantages and disadvantages of partnership. You need to look at the advantages and disadvantages of partnership. Advantages like you're getting more partners, you're maybe getting more capital, you're getting more skills, you're getting more expertise, you're sharing responsibilities in the partnership. But the disadvantages, maybe there are some disagreements can come, and you can't get along with somebody else, and so maybe the person is not right for you. Yeah. So that kind of conflict can arise between partners, and so there are advantages and disadvantages of partners. Of course, you still have an unlimited liability, as in we have an unlimited liability in sole tradership. Okay, because the person who's opened the business has no limited liability. Similarly, in partnerships, no limited liability. They are prone to being liable for their debts.
Whereas if you're a company, like then you have to get limit. You have to get liability.
Yeah. So the other form of business is public limited company or private limited company, whereas you move towards limited liability and more 1 or 2 directors. They have limited liability and so on. So there are advantages. So you can look at the different types of organizations, and then we have cooperatives, then we have franchises, then we have charitable trusts, and we have charitable organizations. Okay, so you really need to read up a little bit on different types of business organizations, right? Okay, and that will explain you the type of business organizations. Okay, so this is I think you need to access. You can't access the Moodle, did you say before?
No, I can't at the minute.
Because these notes will be going up on the Moodle, and all the learning resources will be up on the Moodle. So because we have a limited time on this 1-hour session, you can look up at the resources in the Moodle, and everything that you are required to do is on the Moodle. Okay? So you're always advised to read up more into the lecture after, because otherwise when you come and do assignments and you're limited just only to the lectures, that wouldn't work. So you need to read up a little bit. Okay? So we looked at the sole trader, advantages and disadvantages, partnership. We looked at 1 or 2 advantages and disadvantages. We looked at limited liability, private limited company. You need to look up private limited companies, advantages, disadvantages, the capital, the requirements, who are, so examples of private companies, and partnerships here. Okay, so The next thing we looked at the corporate. I mean, we're going to look at this just briefly. Cooperatives. Any? Have you heard of cooperatives before? I'm sure you must
Yeah,
have come
we
across
we
in your
did
reading.
we did do it in the AAT. We looked at
Yeah.
the
Okay.
business types and everything. So I'll probably just read up on it again to
Yes.
refresh my.
Cooperatives are something like, have you heard of the CIS, Cooperative Insurance Service, Cooperative
Yeah,
Insurance Company, right?
yeah,
Or co-op, co-op,
yeah,
the business that started in Rochdale many years ago or long ago.
yeah,
Cooperatives are there because they started by private people and they worked there and they own the organization. Whatever profit they make, they share amongst themselves. That's the idea of being a cooperative.
yeah,
Okay, cooperative is where they share profit amongst the members. Okay, they
yeah,
work and they get the share of the profit. So therefore, they cooperatives and people work accordingly. Okay.
yeah,
There are producer cooperatives, there are consumer cooperatives, there are working cooperatives. Okay, the producer cooperatives are something like when they want to produce uh, goods and services and they share the profit from that produce among themselves. There are
yeah,
consumer cooperatives like members buying goods in bulk, selling to the members, divide the profit amongst the members only. A
yeah,
workers' cooperative is when you work for an organization, but maybe you're not getting get paid, but whatever profit you make, the workers share the profit, like the cooperative services. I just told you, they work there. Maybe they don't get wages, maybe they don't get salaries, but whatever profit they get from the buying and selling of those goods, the workers share them between themselves. Okay, so
yeah,
producer goods and services, like we have a lot of producer cooperatives. I think in Israel, you know, they
yeah,
like kibbutz. They what they do is produce agricultural products, and they run them and they sell goods and services, and they share the profit among themselves. These are producer goods.
yeah.
And the cooperative services is like a workers and consumers cooperatives. All right,
Okay. Yeah,
or maybe something like this. There's companies, private and limited companies. We said there are private companies and public limited companies. Private
yeah,
companies are owned by, again, people who form them. For example, private company, any organization. For example, UK Versity is an example of a private company. It has
yeah,
one director. It has one director who runs the business, and nobody can buy the shares in the company because the director is not willing to sell, of course, and
yeah,
the advantages and the disadvantages are there. But the limited liability is there, that's an advantage. Unlimited liability is not there. Disadvantages that maybe is limited to expansion. Okay, so
yeah,
if he wants to expand, maybe he needs to take a little bit more or more directors or whatever. Okay.
yeah,
Public company, I'm sure you know about the public company. Is an example of
yeah,
public company is like, for example, Santander.
yeah,
Okay, public is owned by the shareholders, and people can buy and sell shares in the company. That's advantage. Disadvantages, it gets bigger and bigger and disorganized, and maybe lots of communication problems, or maybe other disadvantages like it goes into what
like
you call
like
them,
car companies as well, like Tesla. You can.
yeah, banks and car companies, pharmaceuticals. But the
Yeah,
disadvantage of getting bigger and bigger is it may get out of hand, maybe lack of communication, maybe lack of
yeah,
coordination, lack of control, and you lose track of who's doing what and whatever. Okay.
yeah,
But the public company is, it can buy and sell shares on the stock exchange, okay,
yeah.
and raise capital, whereas the private companies or
They
sole trade
can't.
and partnership can't raise the capital through them. Okay, so if you look at this slide, it'll tell you this. You know, the first slide tells you the organization. This second slide tells you the type of public sector organizations, right? So
Yeah,
moving on to from private sector, we move now to the public sector. Public sector are organizations that are owned or run by the local government or central government, right? And this private sector is different to the public sector in the sense that these public sectors, they're not to make a profit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they don't
Yeah.
make any profit, but they provide a service. Okay,
Yeah.
so they, for example, local authorities provide a service, road building. They provide.
Would charitable ones come into the public sector?
The
'Cause
charitable organizations are different. They are not public organizations. They're not public sector, right? They are
okay.
still in their other organizations, right?
Yeah.
So we're looking at the public sector. The public
Yeah.
sector is owned and run by the government, state services,
Okay.
local authorities, public corporations. So the public corporations like, for example, hospitals,
Yeah.
local authorities run hospitals, public corporations like national service, for example, army, for example, right? The national army, police, for example,
Yeah.
hospitals, right? These types of services, educational services, medical services, these are mostly run by the public sector, okay?
Okay.
And they are getting funding from the public sectors by the tax revenues.
Yeah.
And there's one Quangos, right? So Quangos, we will look at the Quangos. So first of all, let's look at the public corporations. These are organizations, these are government-funded organizations and controlled by the government. So looking at something like hospitals, as we said, or organizations that are police and army and educational services. Okay, local authorities run educational services. They provide ambulance services. They provide hospital services and so on, as well as managing them. Okay,
Yeah.
state services. They are provided by the state service, so the state is funding them, and they are accountable to the state, but they don't make any profit. Okay, Congos are different. Congos are public bodies, but operating through the state, but they are funded by the state, and but they are accountable to a minister. They are the minister responsible for them are responsible how they are run and how they are accounted by. So in the UK, these probably include like a British Council, although they are not controlled by the public sector, but they are funded by the public sector, right?
Yeah.
And they are accountable through a minister. British Council, they provide services overseas in English language. They run English language courses. They run something about Britain. They provide cultural services. They are probably based somewhere in the embassies, or close to embassies, British embassies overseas. And they provide educational and so on and so forth. So they are funded through the government. And these type of organizations are Quangos, right? Okay. So, so the public sector. So what we looked at what's a business, what type of sectors operate in businesses. We looked at private sector, we looked at public sector, we looked at types of public sector organization and types of private organizations. Any question on that so far, please? Anything else that you don't understand, or you're okay, or confusion, or have I not made anything clear?
No, I'm okay.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Next thing we need to look at is type of competition. Okay.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Okay. No. Competition. What do you think competition is? I mean, any
It's
understanding of competition?
So like supermarkets, they're in competition with each other
Right.
with
Okay.
like
Yes.
prices, what they sell.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, the competition is
Any company that is sort of the same. they're in rivalry, even accountancies as well,
Yes.
because of the prices.
Yes. So the basically idea of a competition is rivalry. You
Yeah,
want to win your rivals in all the type of services or goods or in any shape, form or whatever. You want to
yeah,
win them. Yeah. So you
yeah,
always want to win the opponent in the
yeah,
form of providing goods and providing services, providing differentiated products, or making more profit, or any type of it's like a cricket competition against the other team, or for example everybody wants to win. So
yeah,
you're fighting against each other. So businesses of course fight against each other, right?
yeah,
They are there to make profit, but that's the underlying factor. But they'll try and win customers, they'll try and win providing service, they'll try and differentiate their products so that people buy those goods and services. Okay.
yeah,
So why is it important? Why the competition is important? It's because uh, you know people want to get the product. People want to get a service which the other person or the other organization doesn't have. Okay. Why it's important? It's important because businesses can become better against each other, right? They can,
yeah,
yeah, they can provide competitive prices, competitive products, competitive service, right? Better than each other. That's why they are there. Okay, so the
yeah,
competition is quite important and quite healthy. The more the competition, it's better for the society because they have more goods, more services, more better services, more choice,
yeah,
right? So that's why the competition is very important in any economy. Okay.
yeah,
Um, okay. When we look at the economy, we need to look at the market, for example. We need to look at the uh, type of market the company is existing or the business is existing. And one type of definition of a market is where goods and services are sold or exchanged for money. Okay, so
yeah,
that's basic, or where there's a definition of market is where there are a lot of buyers and a lot of suppliers of goods and services, so they can have a choice. So the
yeah,
consumers can have a choice. Okay, so the definition of market is an agreement on an arrangement or a service where there's a lot of people, uh, where there's a lot of businesses to buy goods and services, and there is a competition. There is competition because of the nature of the competition is such that there are barriers to entry. There are barriers to entry, like for example, we have lots of businesses. They have short of money, for example. Maybe they have lacking in the resources. They have capital. Maybe they are technology. Maybe they don't have know-how. So lots of
yeah,
businesses don't enter into the market yet.
yeah,
So there are barriers to entry into the market because of they don't have enough manpower, they have no capital, they have no technological knowledge, and so on. Okay,
yeah,
so when we're talking about the market, we're talking about the market as a whole, whereby consumers and sellers are there to buy and sell goods and services,
yeah,
but there are entries and there are barriers to entries. Okay,
yeah,
examples of barriers, as I said, there's technological barrier, there's you're not getting the right type of people, you're not getting the right type of investment, you're not getting the right type of learn, for example, or research and activity, or there is strong what you call them trade restrictions, right? There is
yeah,
some kind of lots of processes, so there are a lot of barriers to entering into different types of markets.
yeah,
Okay, some organizations there are low barriers, like for example we have a low barriers in selling and buying goods in a sole trader and partnership, very easy to set up and very easy to get out. Okay,
yeah,
so because the people want to quickly want to enter into competition, but they can't because but they can come out and go in anytime they want. So there's low barriers to entry on certain okay, and high barriers in bigger organizations. So for example, chemical industry or IT industry or medical or pharmaceuticals or oil production, right? Lots of barriers to entry.
Yeah.
Or agricultural products. In other words, you need a lot of knowledge and a lot of machinery.
Yeah.
So I'm just right. Are we okay on that market sector? A little bit market introduction
Yeah.
to market sector. Then look at the marketing or market structure. There are different types of market structures within the market. We need to look at the perfect competition. We need to look at the monopoly. We need to look at oligopoly, and there's monopolistic competition. Okay, so if you look at the market structure of perfect competition, quickly, perfect competition is when there are a lot of buyers, a lot of suppliers. There's perfect knowledge. There's movement of goods and services. People get into the business and they can come out very quickly. There's no restrictions, right? There's no, there's a variety of products, and the price is very homogeneous, or this price is very different, very little variation between the price and so on. So the perfect knowledge there. When we talk about the perfect competition, we're talking about perfect knowledge, perfect entry, exit, no restrictions, lots of buyers, lot of sellers. People know what they are. Therefore, people have a very knowledgeable about the products and services. Okay. Examples of product or service or markets that have a perfect competition is like these days, I think IT businesses, for example, like IT, or perfect examples of banking, for example, or stock exchange, because people know about these all the time, and the barriers to entry are there. Okay, so example of perfect competition,
Currency.
Currency, correct, right? Banking, currency, stock exchange, all these bigger companies, because the IT knowledge is there, people can come out, people can go, little restriction and so on. Okay, similar product. Then we look at the second type of competition is look at this here is monopoly. Now, monopoly is just where there is one supplier, and we need to make sure that the supplier doesn't charge a lot of money for its product. But practically, monopoly is when there is only very little competition or there's no competition. Okay, and they charge high prices. They charge a lot of high prices. There's very little differentiation of a product. The quality may be low or the quality may be high. There's nobody to challenge that particular supplier. Okay, for example, we have a monopoly of a product like utilities, for example, water companies or gas companies, or these companies. We have electronics or electric companies, right? So cables and so on. So there's some examples of monopoly. I'm not going to go in details because at this time you don't need this. We may be looking at them in the future, right? So you need to be aware of. Oligopoly is where there are a few people in the market, and they're quite capital intensive. They have a lot of money invested in the business. Particularly, investment is very high, restriction is quite high, and there are only few suppliers. So we have an oligopoly, like we have oil organizations, oil companies. Because there are only few oil companies in the world. They have lots of investment. They have a lot of money. They have a lot of different products, but they are very capital intensive. So the restriction is very high. They don't want other people to come into the market, because they are, yeah, they form a cartel. In other words, they form into a group, and they'll,
Yeah.
stop ranking other people. Or pharmaceuticals, we have oligopolies. As I said, supermarkets is an oligopoly,
Yeah.
for example, banks, and for example, oil companies, as I said, okay, medical or pharmaceutical companies, shipping companies, and so on. All right.
Yeah.
Monopolistic competition, we quickly moving on. Monopolistic competition is when we have many buyers and sellers, and the product is differentiated. Uh, differentiated, and there's some kind of brand loyalty. People are relatively free to come into the market and exit, and the producers are there to raise prices without losing all of their customers. Um, okay, monopolistic competition is, for example, the products are differentiated. So if you look at McDonald's and KFC, for example, maybe they're selling similar products, similar prices, but they are differentiated in the sense that the burgers, chicken burgers, slightly different from KFC to McDonald's, right? Although
Yeah.
their burgers is, yeah. So the different prices, so they are in competition, but they are a few bigger organizations, but the product is differentiated. Um, yeah, cereals,
Yeah.
for example, so producers who are making cereals or Kellogg's, they've differentiated their product by a smaller amount of differentiation, and they can capture the market quickly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like
Uh,
the shape of the cereal as well.
yes. Okay. Shape of the same cereal, or maybe the packaging
Yeah.
differentiated by packaging, or they differentiate in the sense that they make different advertising, for example, or buy one, get one, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that's how they can differentiate, or maybe can give discount a little bit, or voucher, or whatever.
Yeah.
So therefore they can differentiate. So you can look at other examples of these monopolistic competition. Okay, for next
Yeah.
time, clothing, retailing, and so on.
Yeah.
All right. Yes. So what we were getting towards the end, I think we are getting towards the end of the session. Okay. So
Yeah.
let me wrap up. But you need to um, look at the structure of our organization, in the sense that there are different structures. Like if you can note that down, please. Like matrix structure, we have a flat structure, we have tall structure in organizations. Okay, so when you come and do your 1.1, I think one of the assessment criteria is look at the different types of structures as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can explain in one, is it 1.2, I think, when we look at the assignment, it says explain different types of structures. Yeah, different type of structures. It says 1.1 says describe different organizations in public and private sectors. So you can describe that at 1.1, right? Like public and private, and examples of public and private. And
Yeah.
in 1.2 it says describe different structures. So apart from the market structures, we must look at the different types of structures, like matrix structure, flat structures, tall structures. And
Yeah.
maybe it would be a good idea if we can explain it in the next lesson, the
Yeah.
type of structures we will have. Okay, so you need to
Yeah.
look at the 1.2 and the 1.3. It says how the local, national, and international organizations or businesses affect the economy, and so on and so forth. Okay, so
Okay.
1.3, we um, look at the business, how it's affecting locally, nationally, and internationally. So, for example, how would the farm foods affect local people, how it will affect the national, and how it will affect the international organization or international businesses. So we need to look at the three criteria within the learning objective, or learning outcome one. Understand the key features of a business environment. Okay,
Yeah.
so there are 3 assessment criteria we need to look at within the same sector, within the same. Okay, so let's wrap the whole thing. We looked at what is a business, what type of businesses are there, what type of business sectors are there. We looked at the type of business, briefly business competition, the type of monopolistic competition, and so on. We looked at the advantages and disadvantages of businesses, and we looked at the type of organizations that are affecting by the government and the private sector, and the,
Yeah.
so all this type of oligopoly and competition. So we looked at a couple of things which are basic. We looked at the market and market structures. Okay.
Yeah.
You have some kind of you can read up a little bit on this. Um, you can read up a book which
Yeah.
is on the references. It says you can pick up any book on business organizations or business environment, or book that have a business um, environment of business. Okay, particularly 2 or 3 books that are here.
Yeah.
Go to the library and look at BTech National Business Student book number 2 from Pearson's, or any A-level book, okay, on
Yeah.
business environment. So there's a lot of material on it. So what we set out to do was look at the first, going back onto the learning organization. We set out to do the understanding the key features of business, and we looked at this in a little bit details. Okay.
Yeah.
So any question again? Do you have any other question for me? Any questions?
No, I'm
Okay.
alright.
Okay. So what I'll do
I just
is,
need to sort the Moodle thing out, and then I can go.
I'm
Well,
sorry.
I just need to sort that the Moodle with the
Yes,
IT.
we need to sort out the Moodle.
Yeah.
We will do that, no problem. But I'm saying, do you have any question for me for now, or you're okay?
I'm okay. Yeah, I'm okay for now.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining.
Yeah.
And when we're meeting next,
I think it is next
is it
week.
tomorrow?
Um,
Uh, no, it will be next
no,
week,
it's
isn't it?
next week. Yeah, next week.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll see you next week, inshallah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you very much. We'll see you next week. And bye bye.
All right. Bye. Take care. Bye.
Okay. Take care.